Figueroa, Planning Manager. Item 17 is a comprehensive plan amendment that is a vision plan amendment, as you all may know, of 21.5 acres, which is located at the southeast corner of Bryant Boulevard in Ben Franklin. It is in District 1, Councilman Fleming's district. It's in the Rio Vista neighborhood. Now this item and the next item, which is item 18, are actually together. This is the Walmart item. And so this is the comprehensive plan portion where we're changing future land use. It's the next item where we'll be changing the zoning. So the future land use, the existing future land use is commercial and neighborhood, and the applicant is proposing to go to neighborhood center. Staff recommends approval for the following reasons before you and in your staff reports. The area serves as a key commercial node. It's in close proximity to the major thoroughfare, provides effective transition in land uses. It's compatible with the existing land uses, and it's consistent with the major thoroughfare plan. On August the 25th, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the comprehensive plan amendment. The action requested today is to approve case VP 1404 and amend the vision plan component of the comprehensive plan. This concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Rodney, you want to take the lead on this, buddy? It's yours.
I'm going to make this easy. I move that we accept the plan amendment as presented.
Second.
We do have a motion to accept the amendment as presented. I do have a second. I'll call for any council discussion on this at the time. Anyone care to weigh in? Call for public comment on this. The motion has been made that we accept this. I will call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on it. Let's move on now to item number 18.
Yes, sir. Apologize.
Am I getting ahead of you?
No, sir.
Item number 18 is the first public hearing and consideration of introducing an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Exhibit A, zoning ordinance code of ordinances, City of San Angelo, PD 1402, Kimley, Horn and Associates. An ordinance amending Chapter 12, Exhibit A of the Code of Ordinances, City of San Angelo, which said Exhibit A of Chapter 12 adopts zoning regulations, use district and zoning map in accordance with the comprehensive plan, but changing the zoning and classification of the following property to wit: 3518, 3522, 3526, 3602 Ben Ficklin Road, and unaddressed tracts located in the southeast corner of South Bryant Boulevard and Ben Ficklin Road. This property specifically being around 21.5 acres out of the E. Herm Survey 174, Abstract 349, and 2.699 acres of Century Terrace Block 1 in South Central San Angelo, changing the zoning classification from a combination general commercial, heavy commercial, CGCH, ranch and estate, R&E, office commercial, CO, planned development, PD, and low-rise multifamily residential, RM1, to a planned development, PD district, providing for severability and providing a penalty. Ms. Guerra.
Yes, sir. Again, this is item 18. It's the same 21.5 acre site located in District Number 2. As you mentioned previously, the existing zoning for this site is general commercial, heavy commercial, ranch and estate, office commercial, planned development, and multifamily residential. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to planned development with the underlining zoning designation of neighborhood center. Neighborhood commercial. So this is the proposed concept plan that was introduced. There was an original concept plan which was changed and modified and then introduced on the August 25th Planning Commission meeting. So the one that you see before you today has, I'm going to give you a very brief picture of it, has 4 access points, one off Jackson, 2 off Bryant, 1 off Ben Ficklin. You can see that there's parking, a minimal amount of parking located fronting South Jackson, with the majority of it fronting on Bryant. There's also 2 out parcels located in front of the proposed canopy for a gas station. 13 notices were sent within a 200-foot radius. 5 favorable responses were received from within the radius itself. 54 favorable responses were received outside of the radius. The map you see before you today, in fact, shows that radius. There was also a petition that was received and made part of your packets. 77 individuals signed that petition indicating that they were opposed to the request. Staff's recommendation is approval for the following reasons before you and in your staff reports. The area serves a key commercial node. It's in close proximity to the major thoroughfare. It provides effective transition in land uses. It's compatible with existing land uses, and it is consistent with the major thoroughfare plan. There were 10 conditions of approval associated with this request that were listed in your staff report. On August 25th, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended a denial of the rezoning request. Therefore, the action requested today is to approve case PD 1402, subject to conditions of approval, and adopt the ordinance on first reading. And I need to make sure that you're aware of the fact that because of the number of notifications that were received, contrary, or that is an objection to the request, a supermajority vote is required. In order for this to pass, at minimum 6 favorable votes need to be turned in from this council. This concludes staff's presentation. We're available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right. Do we start with proponents?
Can I
Or do
ask
we
que-
start?
Can I
Yes,
ask
ma'am.
questions about the vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you go back to the last vote at the planning commission meeting? Can you tell us who was present?
Everyone, it was a complete quorum of the planning commission.
That is not
true.
It's 5.
There's only
I apologize. The chair was not there, but there was in fact a quorum.
Okay, can you tell me who was there so that I know who voted or who was absent?
There were two absent,
Because I remember it
We'll
being
get the
reported,
names. The chair wasn't there, and there was one other person, and we'll get those names for you.
because I remember seeing it reported differently. That's why I asked.
I'll find that out right now.
I couldn't find any minutes of the commission. Could you tell me what their reasons were for denial?
Ma'am, there was a discussion about tabling the item, that perhaps there needed to be more discussion. It was the applicant, and they can come up and give you a more sound reason as to why they wanted to have a vote that day, but it was the applicants who asked the planning commission to vote on the item that day. And in fact, the planning commission did so and voted unanimously given the fact that they wanted a decision that day.
I understand that, but I'm trying to understand their reason to deny. I don't know what the discussion was.
Yes, ma'am. And if I may, Patrick Howard, Planning and Development Services Director. At the meeting, there was several concerns, primarily about the access off Jackson. As you know, this item was tabled from a previous Planning Commission meeting with the opportunity for the community to meet with the applicant and discuss some of the concerns that they have. We believe that most of those concerns were addressed subsequent to the secondary, or the subsequent submission of a concept plan that was modified greatly. But there were still concerns primarily about the traffic along South Jackson.
Thank you.
And it was not a unanimous vote, it was a 3-2 vote.
That's correct. We're going to get the names for you of those individuals.
Okay. We will start with the proponents or the opponents. Rodney, this is yours. You want to get started on it? You want to get, here's some.
I'd rather hear from the opponents first and then have them come up. I think the homeowners association president is he's given us some papers saying what they're asking for and some of the changes. Would you like to speak, Stan?
Let's start with Stan Metters. If you would come up, I'm going to give you a few extra minutes, Stan, so that since you're speaking for the group, and after you're through, then I will open the floor up to other opponents, but I am going to limit you to 3 minutes. So let's start with you. And I would ask that we only hear these things one time. If it's already been said, we don't need to say it again. So
Right. Thank you very much.
state your name and get
Yes,
started,
sir.
please.
Stan Metter, here on behalf of the Central Park Homeowners Association. And I guess just to kind of, well, you know, we have been working with Walmart and council and staff really since late July, mid-July, and trying to work out and understand what the impacts this development would have And then, obviously, have been interested in trying to do what we can to protect the interest of our neighborhood, a quiet neighborhood on the southeast side of town, and really trying to figure out how we can mitigate some of those negative impacts. While we have been having these discussions ongoing for the last few weeks, you know, I think it's safe to say as a group that we still have deep concerns about the impacts of what this will do to the area and to the neighborhood specifically. Not the least of which is traffic. As has already been pointed out this morning, and I'm sure y'all are hearing it every time you get together, traffic is more and more a concern and a problem. In fact, it was released just within the last few weeks, the Texas A&M Transportation Institute. You know, we have now in San Angelo, we have 19 rights-of-ways, city streets, roads in and around San Angelo that meet their standard to be put on the list. The #1 stretch of highway in the city of San Angelo, the highest ranking stretch for the worst congestion on this Texas A&M Transportation Institute report released at the end of August, reflecting 2013 numbers, is the stretch of US Highway 87, US 277, commonly called Bryant Boulevard, from Houston Hart Expressway down to the south end of town. So here we are, that's exactly where we're talking about. You know, Walmart themselves have indicated that their numbers reflect that you have about a 15% usage of lateral type entrances as opposed to a main entrance. We don't have the map up, but what I'm referring to is that South Jackson entrance. That's going to put, I'd say, at least 300 cars a day on South Jackson that frankly just aren't there right now, and that's a pretty big jump, referring to this entrance here off of South Jackson is what we're talking about. And I think at the end of the day, the biggest concern has been, and the biggest point of contention has been the access point, that particular access point between the proposed Walmart property and South Jackson, and more broadly to the neighborhood in general, being the South Jackson intersection with Bryant Boulevard, and then the new proposed traffic signal up at a more, what I guess is considered a main entrance up a little further north. All of that said, we have been working back and forth principally with Councilman Fleming, and have had a number of ideas put forth, some of which have involved more decision-making on behalf of the city in terms of, can there be no parking zones on a particular stretch of a right-of-way, or the type of striping or traffic control measures that we could install that would mitigate traffic flow into an otherwise limited access neighborhood, to things such as fencing around the property and screening, planting of trees, just the general look of the property and what it is facing certainly the South Jackson area. There has been back and forth, and Councilman Fleming, and I think that's been given around just a rundown of a summary. The city staff also prepared one of these synopsis of where we stand on the matters and what we have asked for as a community, as a homeowners association, and then really kind of where Walmart has agreed to do certain things, where the city will allow, what they will allow, what can't be done. And so I think at this point, you know, I think Councilman Fleming kind of knows what our issues are and where we would really like to hold firm on trying to get some of these measures implemented. One of which I would highlight is a crossbar type apparatus over the entrance in South Jackson. All parties agreed to making that access point a no truck traffic entrance. One of to the point that was raised a minute ago, one of the concerns that was expressed by the planning and zoning commissioner who actually moved to deny the approval was that he felt like that signs only would be inadequate, that invariably you would have trucks pulling into there if they know they can, if they think they can. And so we requested that some type of crossbar. We understand that the fire marshal has weighed in and that there is a concern for having adequate number of access points for emergency vehicles. We're not trying to impede that. We think there are any number of options that could be implemented with the crossbar, a breakaway type one. I actually got a picture. We had one resident drive around San Angelo. If you want any pictures of crossbars at places around San Angelo, we've got them. That give ideas on how you can have breakaways that would help that. But certainly we feel like that would go a long ways in being a much more visible deterrent of keeping trucks from running in and out of there, as opposed to just some sign that kind of melts away and is quickly forgotten and not seen anymore. I think some of the other items that are of more significance to us is the screening aspect and a wall, at least, at minimum, along the South Jackson right-of-way. There's been quite a bit of talk back and forth on that, on what type of structure would be erected, and then any additional screening that might be required or not, that might be in the form of trees, whether that's the left or plantings of additional trees. You know, one of the other we've asked for a no parking zone along the South Jackson right-of-way, both sides of the street from South Bryant eastward to the end of South Jackson, where it turns into a private drive. We have spoken to all parties involved that have any ownership interest on either side of that right-of-way in that entire block, and there's no opposition to such a designation. But again, that really doesn't depend on Walmart's willingness or ability to do anything, or ours. That really resides with the city and the city staff in determining what areas are no parking zones outside of that planned development. Going back to the fence for 1 second, the fence and what has been asked for is a wall not unsimilar to that of the one that surrounds the Walmart on the north side of town. It is an 8-foot tall masonry wall, and that is what our request has been. That would require a variance on behalf of the city due to the way that it's zoned, and y'all know that, or somebody here knows what all that is, but I do know that that would require a variance in order to erect any structure over 4 feet. Given the way that it's currently worded. So we have certainly asked for that as well. And I think really that kind of hits more of the broader points. I think one of the things that has been, in my inexperience and lack of knowledge, just maybe enough to be dangerous on this broader topic, is how some of this all gets rolled up and put together in what actually is done and when. We do have, frankly, concerns that if some of these requests that we have made, that Walmart agrees to, or that are required of them, if they are not captured in that plan development and in that language, we do feel exposed. We feel like it will be difficult to get some compliance on some of these matters down the road. And I think if I had to say, you know, really kind of any other concern that we've had about this process is, you know, we have been dealing throughout with representatives of Walmart in terms of attorneys that work, you know, that are outside hires, as well as engineering firms, and Walmart itself. You know, really, maybe y'all have had more interaction, but it's been kind of a phantom enterprise to deal with, and I do believe a Walmart representative is here today. Been in town at least one other time, but have been absent. Any Walmart representative been absent in this discussion, and I think that is indicative of how big operations like that work and kind of stay behind the scenes. And when it's time to call somebody that really counts, they're nowhere to be found. So we are really asking that some of these items are considered and in a timely manner rolled into the plan development so that we can have the assurances that those will be met and carried out as agreed to.
Thanks.
Is there any questions or
Questions for Stan? Anybody on the right wing?
No, I just really appreciate the time he spent on this. I can't imagine what it's been like being the president of the Homeowners Association during such.
This little red folder, when I started it, it was not when I was president of this association, and it was not intended to be this fat, I promise you.
I think he spent a lot of time dealing with the proponent, and I do really appreciate the time you've
You've earned
invested
your
in
pay,
this.
Stan.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And I do want to acknowledge and recognize, we do have a number of residents here with us today. You know, I think it is also worth pointing out, you know, that in Rebecca's presentation a moment ago, the 5 letters in favor and 54 whatever, of course those are all interested parties, those represent sellers, those represent you know, the real estate firm or firms that are interested and have a vested financial stake in this enterprise. And as I was quoted in the paper yesterday, I had no problem with that whatsoever, none at all. But the 77 people that signed the petition and, you know, with concerns and reservations about this, we're the ones that have to live out there and see 300 extra cars a day on South Jackson and see the implications of how this plays out. And I think this goes back to some of the concerns that were stated earlier about the frac sand hill and more central location. These are the types of growing pains we're all having to deal with. But those are our concerns, and we're the ones that are going to have to you know, to live with this. And so we ask for your consideration in that regard.
Stan, I have a quick question.
Yes.
The number 77, is that the number of homeowners that are in your association? Is that it, or how big is that?
Yeah, and I couldn't verify, John, what number, who, yes, but essentially that would have counted the homeowners in our association. What the actual total number is, I couldn't even tell you that.
Now, that number does it or does it not include the folks that live at Century Park? Is that part of the association?
That does not include
Okay.
the residents of the apartment complex and
That
front.
is, the association is the neighborhood behind.
That's correct. That's behind the apartments, Century Terrace Apartments, and that subdivision, it's the homes back behind there. Yeah.
I believe there's like 62.
I think that's the
something
right
like
number.
this.
As far as
Low 60s.
It's low
Households.
60s, the actual number of residences in that, you know.
Households, not residents.
Yeah, households.
I'll take further comment. I'll take further comment at this time from the opponents, unless anyone else has a question.
Opponents? Yes.
Opponent, unless anyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Stan. I will limit the remarks to 3 minutes, and I'll ask that you not repeat over and over the same things, please.
Good morning. My name is Bob Housley, and I want to visit a little bit this morning in response to my need as far as Jackson and Bryant Street. I came before the council on the 25th, and we talked about some of these issues that came up again this morning, but for the benefit of each of you, I'd like to just share with you that I have been on that corner of Jackson and South Bryant since 1999. And at the time that I moved there, we chose not to get involved in putting any type of entrance on Jackson Street because of the homeowners living to the right of our property. We chose to ask, and we did receive from the Texas Department of Transportation to put a opening in the front of our building so we could come off of North Bryant to get into our property. Over the years, of course, we have grown. Today, House of Communications has a payroll in San Angelo of $4.5 million. We have 97 people working in that office on the corner. We also have about 85 to 95 vehicles that come into that property every morning to go to work and go home in the afternoon. And of course, during the lunch hour, several of them leave. That doesn't include all the people that come into our property, such as subcontractors or other people, to pick up equipment or whatever. Now, I believe in people being prosperous and being able to move to our city. I don't think that WalMart needs another store personally, but if they want one and they want to spend the money, that's their business. I don't have any problem with Walmart being next door to me. I do have a problem with them getting access to Jackson Street. The reason for that being is that when you come off the property, or come off of North Jackson, if you're in San Angelo, coming to my property, and you need to make a left-hand turn to go into my business, you go to a arrow light, which is the inside lane. And if you want to turn in on Jackson Street, if there's one car waiting at the stop sign to make a right turn, go across Jackson, going westbound, or making a left-hand turn going southbound, I can't turn in because they have my entrance blocked. So we have to make a U-turn and hope that we can get over in the right-hand lane while the light is still in our favor to get in our parking lot. It's a congestion issue. And I think that with the access of Jackson Street, or pardon me, Jackson Street being open behind my building, it will even be a more significant issue. At the meeting that we had on the 25th, Walmart came up here and stated that they had talked to me about releasing one of my cuts that comes in off of North Bryant. If they would like, if they had that, they may not be in a position to have to use the Jackson Street exit behind my building for ingress and egress. Number one, no one has ever talked to me from Walmart except a gentleman that came out and threw a contract on my desk trying to buy my property. And when I refused him, he said, well, don't worry about it, we'll build around you. I thought that was not in order of trying to do business with people that care. Again, I have no problem with Walmart being in town. I do have a problem with any type of access on Jackson Street. Now, based on what I just said about Walmart and taking one of my cuts that I have in front, I went to the Texas Department and visited with some folks over there, and they encouraged me, or didn't encourage me, I encouraged myself by talking with them, that they would consider if I would donate my nearest cut on the north side, which is right up next to their property line. If you flipped it, it would be on their property. I would agree with Walmart this morning to give them that cut so that Texas Dot will just let them move it over on their property, which would give them another access into the property. And I don't know if I've got, if you will notice where I have the little mark, my property, that cut is right there. Their property is just right in here. And I'd be willing to give them that cut, and I would have mine turned completely asphalted up, make it where it's not available anymore.
Speaking to the mic.
If they would consider taking, and they could put their
Mr.
tree in. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. And they would consider, they still have it, they could have a street that come in right next to my property and go back to their parking lot behind over near Jackson, but just don't cut off that street that goes out to Jackson, which would give them, they wouldn't need that because that would give them another entry. And I want to talk a little bit about on the north side of their property, which comes out to...
Just a minute, Mr. Housley.
Mhm.
He's way over his 3 minutes. Does council say all right, let him talk?
I'd like for him to finish talking.
Okay, Marty?
I won't take just a minute.
Johnny?
I'll
Go
talk as
ahead.
fast as I can. But if they would consider doing that, and I will give them that opportunity to have that other entry off of Bryant Boulevard. And we know that on the north side up here, if they would take their fuel area and move it back over on my side, back on the, what I would call the south side of their business, that would also take the possibility of fire away from a lot of parked cars there. It would also give the fire department more access to get in. And we know in the very near future, if Walmart starts building here, up by, I guess it's San Jacinto and Ben Ficklin, there's another out there, and there'll be a strip center going there, and there'll even be more opportunity for people to get ingress and egress into Walmart as time goes by. We want to work with them, and I don't have any problem doing that, provided they would withdraw from an entry on Jackson Street behind my office. And I think it's a major safety issue if you let that happen. And we're willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else care to speak to this? On the opponent side, come ahead, sir.
I am Eddie Dismukes,
and I am here on behalf of all the people of San Angelo who are concerned about their water. But before I start, which is gonna be less than 3 minutes, I won't be as long as Bob, I promise. I want all the people with Century Park to stand up, please. So that will give you an indication who's here with Century Park. But I'm here for the people of San Angelo who are concerned about their water. First of all, Walmart has proposed the site is right on top of our drinking water. That goes right down to Lone Wolf Dam, and that's where we get our drinking water. That's right on top of it. And you would think that that's not a big problem because they have all these deals that say they're going to do wonderful things to prevent pollution of our water. On January 22nd, 2004, the Catawba Riverkeeper in Belmont, North Carolina, Walmart was a practice of storing tons of lawn and garden products on pellets outdoor in the parking lot. These contain chemicals that are known to cause birth defects or other reproduction harm and are extremely toxic to aquatic life. Walmart's practice of stockpiling tons of these chemicals outdoors in the open results of chemicals washing into storm drains when it rains. Storm drain collection system eventually discharge accumulated rainwater to streams. They're right on the top of our water. They don't have to go into anywhere else to get it. It's going right there. That's into our primary source of drinking water. August 2005, in Connecticut, Walmart agreed to pay $1.15 million for threatening rivers and streams with chemical pollution. I'm sure before all that situation started, they said, no problem, we've got it under control. Well, they paid $1.15 million. We don't want to be involved in that. They can find another place in San Angelo. Large parking lots such as Walmart generate huge volumes of polluted storm water runoff. Each acre of parking service produces average runoff of 25,000 gallons of water during a 1-inch rain. We had a 7-inch rain the other day. So I've got others to tell you, but I'm running short of time. I just want to say that I think Walmart could find a better place than where this area is that will not pollute our water. So I am asking the city of San Angelo, the people of San Angelo, to do something about our water. I'm concerned about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Next. Anyone else care to speak in opposition? Let's turn it over to the proponents then, and I'll ask Walmart.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Mike Murray, and I am an attorney with the law firm of McMahon, Cervic, Suttle, and Abilene. I am land use counsel for Walmart in this project. I have with me Dan Skehan, who is the project engineer, and we also have Kelly Dewar with Walmart. So if there are specific corporate related questions, Kelly can field those.
Is she the Phantom?
She is the Phantom. I kind of, do we have the original site plan that we had proposed, Dan? I don't think it's on there. Do you have a pointer, and we can just kind of walk through kind of what we. Kind of as a background, we came to the city January, February, and started discussing with the city what we wanted to do on this project. At the time, we came forward, we put in a plan, we requested our zoning. In June, we came to planning and zoning. The project was tabled based upon some opposition, and we were given the opportunity to work with the neighborhood. At the time in June, what we had planned were, you can see here, we had 2 proposed access points on Jackson Street, one kind of in the middle of the project and one on the far east. We also had a number of loading docks on the southeast corner, and then the parking field immediately south of the building here extended almost all the way to Jackson Street. We met with the neighborhood association in July, listened to their concerns, and went back to the drawing board and put the plan that was presented to planning and zoning. That plan eliminates one of the access points on Jackson. It also flips the truck loading, and all trucks are now located on the northern end and will access the property from the Bryant Street access. We also reduced the parking field to the south of the building, and there's now approximately 120 feet more or less from the right-of-way to the beginning of the parking field, and that's the plan that we came forward with. The existing, or the drive that we have proposed is roughly in the location of an existing access easement that provides access from the property to Jackson Street right now. So we're planning to build that drive in our existing access easement. A couple in the staff presentation, they indicated that the two front parcels would be out parcels, and those are not going to be out parcels. Those are open area, landscape, and green space that we're going to leave on the front. There won't be any out parcels like you would typically see in other Walmarts. So this is what we came back with. We met with the council, and the Planning and Zoning Commission. The vote was 3-2 to deny. And it really, I think the denial stemmed on the Jackson Street access and whether or not that access is appropriate. For our site plan to work, we need that Jackson Street access. Mr. Housley's comments about donating the drive along Bryant to give us 3 access points along Bryant, we would still need to go to TxDOT and get a variance for our access drive, and so that's not a guarantee that we would be able to get that access point. Due to the speed limit and the spacing of drives all along that area, my understanding is we don't meet the necessary criteria to get those access points. So what we have proposed to the homeowners association is the traffic control and mitigation issues along Jackson Street, striping, no parking, things like that. If the city will approve those are things that we're willing to do. I know one of the questions was a crosswalk. The staff proposal before you indicated a crosswalk would be at Bryant in Jackson, and it's our understanding that the crosswalk is actually wanted in the middle, and so we would be willing to put that in if those are things the city would approve. I think the 2 sticking points beyond the Jackson Street access are the type of screening wall that would be built there. At the HOA meeting we had in July, we suggested building a 6-foot wooden fence with stone columns that's similar to what the HOA currently has. The staff report has come back and suggested a 4-foot screening fence, to which we still prefer the wooden fence, but as I indicated to the HOA and to Councilman Fleming yesterday by email, Walmart would agree to build a 6-foot precast concrete screening wall, and that is the wall. This is a picture of that, and this is the type of wall that is located at the north San Angelo Walmart, and that is a 6-foot precast wall, not an 8-foot wall. So we would be willing to do that 6-foot wall in that area. As to the landscape, our plan is to leave as much of, this is a picture of kind of the native area. Our plan would be to leave as many of those mature trees as is possible there inside the wall, so that you would see the wall first and then the tree canopy over the top of the wall. And then where there are gaps necessary, we would fill those in. The staff proposed, or in the report, would basically double the amount of trees that Walmart had proposed to build or to install. We have 32 trees, and the staff report would take us up to 65. The additional landscape that's been requested by the HOA is unnecessary if we're able to keep with this native vegetative buffer in there behind the wall. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Dan can answer any of the engineering type questions, and Kelly can answer any of the specific questions.
Would you be opposed to that crossbar, the breakaway?
Our preference is not to do that. If the city requires it, we will, but our preference would not to do it. We think it impedes traffic generally. 95% of the truck traffic that comes to this site are controlled access trucks, meaning they're Walmart trucks. Those drivers have explicit instructions to enter and exit on the on the northern access. The only other trucks that would be coming here would be your vendor trucks, beer, soda, bread, etc. And those trucks also are given explicit directions on how to access this site. So there are other trucks, not semis that are private vehicle trucks that are going to come in here, and that crossbar, it hinders traffic generally. It also can create a problem with the emergency vehicles. But
Well, it would have to be a breakaway, because once the truck gets in there, there's no way to get out.
right. So, Dan.
Yeah. Like Mike said, not opposed to it, but obviously we don't feel the need for it, but at the city's discretion.
I don't think that's a bad idea, Mayor. I think if we use something that is not gonna damage a vehicle, I'm much more concerned about emergency vehicles getting in than anything, so I wanna protect the taxpayers' equipment as well.
So you say no breakaway bar?
I would be okay with a breakaway
Yeah,
bar,
yeah.
as long as it's something, again, that's not gonna hurt our emergency access.
That's the way
our
I
own
feel
equipment.
about it. I don't have a problem with it as long as it's a breakaway, but it's gonna have to be a breakaway.
Is Ross here?
Yes.
Ross Coleman, are you here?
Dan, how
Maybe
tall
running
are those
downstairs.
breakaway bars? I mean, what is the height requirement?
We can set that height however you want. We coordinate with the fire department to set that height on what they need for their vehicles.
Thank you, sir.
Jordan?
I had experience with breakaway bars in communities, apartment communities, and I'll give you the location on Lindenwood. There at the end where it dead ends, and Creekside Apartments built in there, and they were required to put in a breakaway bar, which stayed broken most of the time with people that drove through it just because. And they don't seem to work like they should in heavy traffic areas. People get aggravated because they don't come up and down fast enough.
Ross, what height requirement would we need for that ladder truck? That ladder truck's the biggest truck we have, right?
Yes, about 13.5 feet, so 14 feet probably to the bottom.
So even if we made it where it wouldn't block that truck, then you're pretty much knocking out any other truck that would go
Yeah,
through.
your 18-wheelers are going to be a little bit higher. On the
They will be taller?
Yeah, on the cargo side.
So we
the
can
ladder
make-
truck, yeah, the very top of the ladder is going to be about 13.5, if I remember correctly.
And so it would be possible for us possibly to put in one of these at like 14 feet or something like that.
Possibly.
Just
Yeah,
above what the
we'd have to
ladder.
look at Walmart specs on their trucks and see how high they're ranked.
What my feeling is on this, and I've met with them, believe me, I've had more meetings on this and more phone calls than I had on the trash situation that we had. I would rather give the neighborhood a few things and I don't know how this vote's gonna go anyways, but my opinion is that we would give them a few of these things that they're asking for. The variance on the rock wall, I think that we should give them the variance on the rock wall. We'll have to bring it back to us. But instead of doing a 4-foot precast stone wall, it should be at a minimum 6 feet. I would like 8 feet, but I think we could get by with 6 feet with the natural cover that's back behind there, Stan. I think that would work out pretty good. And the amount of vegetation that they're asking, saying that they're gonna plant back behind there, the bigger trees that would be back there. So I think if we came back with a 6-foot wall, that would work. Give them the crossbar that they're asking for. I'm trying to make them as happy as I can. I'm not making the homeowners happy. They're not going to be happy with me at all on how I'm going to vote on this situation, but I'm trying to give them a few of the things that they're asking for. And I know that Walmart can afford to do these things. That breakaway bar is not going to cost anything. In the big scheme of things, it's going to be nothing. The precast wall really is not going to be that much more expensive than a 4-foot wall once you get started on that. So I think that we should move forward on those two things. They weren't asking, really, I was proud of the homeowners association because in the end, when I first started meeting with them, they were asking for a whole lot of things that we just couldn't do. And Walmart wasn't going to do. And us as a city are not able to make them do these things. They really pared it down. No, we're not. They really pared it down and they really made a lot of changes to this situation. And I think that it's a bad situation, but try to give them a few of the things that they're asking for. And I think these things are possible for us to provide to them. The breakaway thing, that's not that big of a deal to ask for. If we build it just a foot higher than the ladder truck, then it's not going to affect the ladder truck. It would affect the trucks that would come through there. This is my opinion on this.
And again, it's our preference not to do
Microphone, please, sir.
Again, it's our preference not to do it, but if that's something y'all want, it is doable, and we just coordinate with the fire department on what would be an appropriate height. And you mentioned our trucks. Our trucks better not be on Jackson Street.
Right.
So they better be up on the north end of the property. So, that shouldn't be a concern.
Ross, I think that's all we need from you. Thank you.
Ross, no, I have a question for you. You do need this Jackson Street entrance?
Yes, sir. We did an evaluation, and if you look at the northwest side, you have there's actually 4 proposed entrances, the Jackson Street, the one right in front of the store, up at the top, and then that Ben Ficklin area. The problem is that in a traditional emergency, when everybody's trying to get out, our fire department's going to be trying to get in. It's not a good practice for us with a big truck to try to maneuver through a parking lot. So we have everything concentrated in that one area, and then we also have one of our main targeted hazards, which is the fueling island. So Mr. Housley came to my office, we talked about that, he discussed moving that, and I told him, well, if that was something y'all decided to do, we would revisit the issue. But right now, as it stands, we do need remote access. And just plainly obvious, that Jackson Street access gets us directly next to the building, directly next to it. Okay, so that's important.
Thank you, Ross. Charlotte, do you have a comment?
Yes, have a comment, and I have a question for Mr. Housley when I finish the comment. This is going to surprise a lot of people coming from my argument and my fight on the Southland Drive here recently. But I do want to point out that Jackson Street is 5 lanes. It's wide, it's curved, and it's wide. The center lane is a turning lane all the way down. And I also want to point out that the residents of the apartments, as well as the homeowners back there, have another point of ingress and egress on Century Drive that is just to the south of the property, which is a relief route right there. And if we put things up on Jackson, what's to stop, if Shane is here, he could say when we stop traffic in one place, it diverts to someplace else, and it's going to divert down to Century Drive, I assure you. It truly will, and that is a huge, huge difference in the position. And I've worked with Walmart, I've met with them separately and looked at their plans and have found them easy to work for. I did address with them the stormwater runoff drainage issue, because that is a problem area, and they sent me their requirements of what they would be doing and to effectively handle stormwater runoff. I appreciate their quick response. It was something they didn't dream up. It was already on the table to send it back to me that quick. I do appreciate that, and they are willing to do anything further that city engineers feel that is necessary for stormwater runoff. And the question I have for Mr. Housley, it drive the property, drove all the way around down into Century, all the way down to the clubhouse and back out several times. Does your truck yard have an entrance for your truck vehicles on Jackson behind your building?
No, ma'am.
Does not. Okay, would you be opposed, since there is a turn lane in there, would you be opposed, and I've not asked Walmart this, if they were willing to put an entrance, just a paved entrance for you to have a gate for your employees, that slides back and forth to enter from that point? Is that a possibility?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. Okay. Got my questions and got my answers, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any further comment?
I've got a quick comment on the...
I'll get you in just a minute, Stan.
On the crossbar idea, if you guys are okay with it, that's fine, but if you're going to make it 14 feet tall, why even have one? If a lot of vehicles can get under that anyway, it seems like we're,
I think the goal would be to deter any 18-wheeler trucks that come through there and,
Dead end deters.
you know, and that would, again, we don't think it's necessary, but we'll do it if that's something that you know, makes you guys, address, if it helps address their concerns. Well, one point to Councilwoman Farmer's comments, if we don't have the access along Jackson, people are going to turn on Jackson Street, assuming they can get into the Walmart. If there is no access, they have no relief valve except into the neighborhood.
That's what concerns me about the crosswalk. I mean, if an 18-wheeler does turn down there by accident, they have no place to go once they get there but to go through the neighborhood to get out.
True. So if the Jackson is removed from the plan, you know, we ultimately think it will have a bigger effect on the neighborhood than with the access street, or it could.
Further, Johnny?
I think that's the idea of maybe putting a big, large sign that no 18-wheelers allowed down that road. Because, you know, they're not gonna drive, if I'm driving an 18-wheeler, I'm not gonna drive into the neighborhood. I'm gonna try to make a U-turn at that 5-lane street anyway. I'm not gonna drive into the apartments or the homeowners area back there. I'm gonna try to swing that thing around. But maybe the idea of the sign.
We will put signs along Jackson and our entrance and exit that indicate that no truck access is allowed there. Again, you know, signs on the street really fall within the city. If the city will allow those, we'll do those. We're also willing to put up no access, no public access, dead end, other signage along here to deter traffic back into the private drive area, if those are agreeable with the city.
Well, I pull a trailer everywhere and I don't get anywhere if I can't see the way out. Any other comments from council? Stan, did you have something else you wanted to say, sir?
Well, if I may address just for a moment to some of these points that have been raised to Councilwoman Farmer. You know, Century Drive, we do have that entrance, but it's right turn in, only right turn out. It's not a four-way. We can't turn south out of that entrance. So there is an entrance point and an exit, but it's limited. Point one. As far as the breakaway or the crossbar is concerned, I mean, a couple of points there. We're certainly amenable to kind of whatever type of bar. In fact, one idea, and we're not crossbar engineers by any stretch, but one idea that was thrown out is if, I don't know what the width of that is, let's just call it for conversations, that say 30 feet. If you did 2 bars that didn't necessarily go all the way across and had a little gap in the middle or something like that, where you had 2, you know, that come up from either side that could allow something like the fire truck with the ladder down the middle, you hit that gap and you're good. I don't know, I'm not that engineer, but I think this is something, I mean, it really goes back to the idea, Johnny, for our, it's not only the Walmart trucks, it's any trucks running up and down that little street. And it is a wide street, but that street is not used, it's not been kept up, and it's really not the right place for truck traffic. And it's not only that, it's the sand trucks that we're worried about. I mean, Walmart did agree to make this parking lot a no overnight parking at our request. I don't know that that was the request of the Planning Commission, but nonetheless it's there. What we don't really want to see though is that sand trucks or any other trucks, instead of turning in there, just wheel back around and go along South Jackson and use that to park on or whatever. You know, so it's those concerns. It's not just that. And I agree with you, Councilman Self, that you know it can cause problems having that breakaway bar there. But that's the whole point of why we wanted it. Is much more of a deterrent than just a sign that gets ignored day in and day out. I've got a letter here that is, and you were sent this note, where in a store in Dallas, Texas on Greenville Avenue recently, and this is unfolding as we speak. This letter was dated August 27th, where, you know, assurances and promises have been made about no trucks up and down these streets delivering to one of these neighborhood neighborhood stores. My sister lives 3 blocks from this Walmart neighborhood store in Dallas. And, you know, there's all these assurances made of no trucks will be going down this street and no trucks will be going down that street, and we won't have trucks in the middle of the night over here and there. And I can show you pictures of Walmart trucks, chunks of them embedded in trees in that neighborhood going down the streets that they promised not to. So while they can say, yeah, we're going to make sure our drivers know that, to the extent that that's followed or not, we don't know. And we have reason to believe that, you know, maybe not everybody gets the memo. So I think that really all of these concerns drive home our point of why we would want a much more visible deterrent in addition to signage. Lastly, I have here a tape measure. I've got 2 pictures on my phone from the North Walmart store. That wall is 8 foot tall. It's right here on this with the tape measure on it. It was taken yesterday afternoon about 7 o'clock. We don't see any reason if they can build one in North San Angelo why they can't build an 8-foot wall in South San Angelo along that strip. And to the point about the water quality, we would certainly like to make sure that aside from the stormwater runoff issues, and I'm sure they're being adequately addressed, I think the point that Eddie makes about storage of chemicals, fertilizers, and whatnot in a garden center that's probably more towards the back of the store that is closer in proximity to that river in the South Concho, that we make sure that those types of issues are avoided at all costs, and that that's addressed up front and now.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Haslett. We're about to have a call for the vote. We're
I
about
just
to
have
leave
a
the
couple
list.
of comments I want to make. On our meeting on the 25th with Walmart, Mike was here. The question came up about the other entrance off of Bryant Boulevard. And they basically said in their thought process was that if they had that, maybe the entrance on Jackson Street wouldn't need to be. I'm making that available to them today. I feel 100% secure that the Texas Dot will do that because I had a long visit with him yesterday. If you move the gas pumps over to my side, it's basically the same layout as they have out at the other store on the west side. And then there won't be a reason to even have to worry about all these breakouts, excuse me, all the breakouts and getting on Jackson Street. Jackson Street is going to be a disaster for Bob Housley if you approve that. Please take in consideration that I've been there since '99. I understand what happens out there, and that property has always been there, and there's always been a little bit of an issue, but it's not bad. But you add all these other people to it, it's a major issue. And to answer your question, if you use the other entrance on Century Park, you can turn right, but that's the only place you can go. Yeah, it's just, you're just letting them get on south, on North Bryant just a little earlier. But thank you for asking that. But today I'm telling the city council, we can make that work without using Jackson Street, and you'll have a happy group. You let people go into Jackson Street, and I think everyone here will be sorry when after they see it later on, and we'll have some real issues with accidents. It's going to be very difficult for me to get that many people in my office in the morning because of that. And I think that the people that have been there the longest should have some consideration. And please remember, I'm willing to do what I said I would do about closing that entry and giving it to them. It was all right in the meeting before, today evidently it's not. But the way they talked in the last meeting, they could do a lot better than that opening, and we're providing that for them. Thank you. Appreciate your interest.
I'll tell you, Rodney, why don't you make a motion, put your qualifications in here, and let's vote on this.
I move that we.
Can I ask one thing to add to one of the conditions? One of the conditions is that there be no overnight parking and no parking longer than 12 hours. If you would amend that condition to require Walmart to put signs in the parking lot, that helps with our enforcement of that. When we can point to the sign and tell them, you know, this is required by code for us to do that, that just helps us. And we found that that's the case when we need to do that. In the past, we like to do that.
I move that we accept the conditions as proposed with the following exceptions. Change or allow Walmart to put in the signs on item number 5. On item number 6, I would like it to be changed, and this is we'll have to make a variance, we'll have to bring it back for a variance, but I would like for it to be an 8-foot cast stone wall, just like the one that's on the north side. And then I would like to add number 12, a breakaway crossbar shall be installed on Jackson Street entrance to development. I think, Stan, actually it shouldn't go across both lanes, it should only go across one lane, because you're only trying to block the entering lane, and
However it needs to be designed.
I think-
Just that there's something there.
I think we design, they'll come up with somewhere, and that's at the expense of Walmart. That's it.
Motion has been made that we accept this with an 8-foot wall with some type of a breakaway bar to be engineered. And what was the last one? The signage
The
on the
signs
parking
that
lot
Walmart will
to
install.
prevent overnight
Because
parking.
because of the code, way the code is written, we have to allow them to do that, I believe.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
may I ask that he consider several additions to his motion?
May ask.
The internalization of fertilizers or any other chemicals be only offered within the building and not in any sort of outdoor arrangement?
Can we, Patrick, can we do that?
Sure you can.
Walmart, is this something that y'all could accept?
The outdoor storage is permitted in the area by zoning, and so
When you're working on a planned development district, you're working on a unique ordinance, so.
I agree. I don't know, to be honest, I don't know if that's something that is doable from an operational standpoint or not.
Right now, if I go to a Walmart store, I can buy fertilizer, pool chemicals inside the store.
That's correct. You can do that, but they're typically in our outdoor garden center and not internal to the building. And I just don't know from an operational standpoint if that's even something that we can do.
I don't want to get too far off his motion, Mayor, but I will tell you, the only opposition that I had from people that were not in Century Park were those that were concerned about proximity to the river. So I think that, from the larger community standpoint, that's something that would help some of those concerns.
You want to add that, Rodney?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
One thing we have done to address that problem, or that concern, I should say, is due to the proximity of the river, we've incorporated a storage detention basin on site to where all the water will be routed through that basin, giving, if there was a discharge, as Stan referenced earlier, that it would be captured in the detention basin prior to any kind of release to the Concho River. That was one of the concerns I believe that Councilmember Farmer had, was that discharge, and so we took that into account in our initial design, so that if there was any kind of chemical release, whether that's fertilizer or whether that's just something in the parking lot itself, that would be captured in that detention basin, have a chance to settle out and be addressed prior to any kind of discharge into Concho River.
And I might add that the CRA, Colorado River Authority, has gauges all along the arroyo, and they do test the water at the southwest door, the flow that comes down through there. And I'm sure it would be feasible for them to put another gauge in to check periodically that quality.
So if you don't want to add that, don't, and we'll monitor it another way, and if we have to do something and force them to do that later, we can do that.
I prefer not to add it at this time, and it was just brought forward to my attention that I can't ask for the 8-foot fence. What I can ask for is that the city council would like for you guys to come back and do an 8-foot fence, because that has to be put on the agenda, and we have to do a vote on the variance on that. So,
I don't care about an 8-foot fence, I think a 6
well,
foot is fine.
Well, it's not 6 foot either. For Liz, it's not 6 foot, it's 4 foot.
I would be happy with a 6-foot fence, because I don't like us recommending things that generally the population can't have.
But it's the same thing, we can't force them to do that until it comes back for the variance and we get the variance to pass, correct?
Can we?
Sir, you are correct, however, it's the zoning board of adjustment that can only grant the variances. So what you can do today is indicate your support for such a height. However, when it goes forward to the ZBA and staff puts it forward, we'll be more than happy to put that in the staff report.
You could put a 6-foot fence in this ordinance right now, couldn't you?
We could not. We cannot we cannot indicate that something will be done without a variance being granted.
Why is a variance necessary for a 6-foot fence?
Because it's adjacent to a right-of-way, and in
Oh, okay, sidelines.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the reason I'd rather have a 6-foot fence there.
So the condition will read, it's a minimum 4 foot, however, you've indicated on the record, Walmart has indicated on the record that they're willing to go to either 6 or 8 feet. You indicated on the record that you're willing to support it. We will put that in the staff report and it will go
Okay.
forward to the CBA.
I'm good with that.
And even though it's not gonna be in the report, whatever you tell us to do when we go to the zoning board of adjustment, we'll do it.
Again, in the end, I'm more concerned about the safety of the entire community.
Understand.
Elizabeth, is that the only addition?
I think I've been additioned out, so I'll stop now.
Not addition.
Anybody want to second this?
I'm gonna second that.
Okay, we do have a motion that we accept the Walmart proposal with the requirement that we would ask for an 8-foot fence, which would go through the zoning board of adjustments to be approved, that we allow for signage that says no overnight parking. What was the other one?
So they're reflective on these conditions that you see before you that have been amended from the PD conditions that Councilman Fleming has indicated. So it would, your approval would be subject to 12 conditions of approval as listed in the PowerPoint that you've discussed with the addition of the breakaway crosswalk.
Very
So
well.
subject to 12 conditions, and we'll pass that on to the clerk.
Yes.
You comfortable with that,
Yes,
Rodney?
I am.
Are you comfortable with it, John?
Yes, sir.
Motion has been made. We have had a second. We have had discussion from the opponents. We have had discussion from the proponents. And if there's no further council discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 7-0, and let's take a break. It is 10:45. I'm calling